this project is sent from elsewhere, really, because it was a coming together of thoughts from women who each in their little corner had somehow been touched by something that says, Nokutela Dube.
Nokutela is my mom's great aunt from her paternal side. That way, I'm fourth generation from Nokutela. It's always been amazing to be connected to such a great woman.
For me, it had been quite a while where I thought, one of the things I wanted to do is to create a film on the life of Nokutela, because history forgets deliberately the women problem. You know, not just Nokutela, but many.
In our patriotic society, the woman has always been relegated into oblivion.
It angers one profoundly.
Around 2012 for me, when there was a big celebration of the African National Congress centenary, I started being heavily bothered by the absence of women figures in what was being discussed. And I knew that right next to John Langalibalele Dube had been his first wife, Nokutela Mdima. And as a filmmaker and a storyteller, it bothered me that we were not telling the full story. And finding like-minded women who also wanted something told on Nokutela brought me to this project.
She has been a forgotten name. She has always been a woman without a name, a forgotten hero. And I think it is time that we bring her to the table and she reclaims her place in history. I would go as far as saying she needs to be celebrated as Dr. Nokutela Dube or Umamdima, because the works that she performed, I mean, we always put John Dube on a pedestal. But who was the pedestal he stood upon? It was Nokutela. She's the one who chose not to be seen for him to be seen.
For as much as she stood out as her own person, even at that time, the community was not ready to deal with a woman of that nature. And I also think, in the end, John Langalibalele himself did very little to own up to the contributions that she had made. It was all apparently about him and nothing about the contribution she had made.
There's no John without Nokutela, actually. She made him.
Sometimes she's not even being called by her own name, by the way, it's just Mrs. John Dube.
John Dube wanted to provide education for African boys and girls. I think the influence that Mama Nokutela had was very immense. It would be a travesty of justice if we do not mention the contribution that she made, particularly in the curriculum. Shoemaking and dressmaking and music were her strengths. So they were working side by side as partners, equal partners. They say behind every successful man there is a woman, but here it's not a behind, it's besides.
I suspect that in her own way, she's sitting rooting and saying, generations and generations later, the younger voices are coming through to voice me out. Voicing her matters. It's important for me to know that I can contribute in a really tiny manner to bringing back Nokutela to her own work.
So I'd like her to be remembered as a source of strength, as a point of reference for future development, as a poetess with a very deep, profound, and alive song in her heart. how do we keep that legacy? Fortunately, there is documentary work that is happening, and we live in an age that is digital and therefore global. And the more we get that going, the easier, for instance, it is going to be for people to pick up her stature.
I think we need to start now recognizing the role that Nokutela played and immortalizing her, because you just can never have a Nokutela who is lying dormant in the Brixton Cemetery.
She's a phenomenal woman. She may be physically dead, but she's still alive, because she has a presence that refuses to die. The fact that we are sitting here and talking about her is saying, I'm still here, and please help me help women get better recognition. And therefore, if you recognize me, then there'll be a stream and a justification for greater women development and opportunities.
History has not been very kind to her. And as history is going to be made compulsory, there are some mutterings that history will be made compulsory in 2023. The designers of history need to always ensure that amongst the most powerful and important women in South Africa, Nokutela stands head above shoulders than the rest, actually.
Film is an archive tool for our stories and our cultures.
When the time for anything to happen is ripe, there is nothing but nothing that can stop it. And Nokutela's time has arrived.
And every South African needs to know about this phenomenal woman.
For me, there are two things that I want people to take away from what we are doing here. We want Nokutela's name written back into her chapter of the history of this country and the progress that came with her contribution. Number two, I want this to help us remind our society, remind our nation that erasure of women in the history of our country and how this nation got built is something we need to start correcting story by story. And this is just a start.